The bank manager's face drained of color when I walked through those glass doors. His hand moved toward the phone, not to greet me, but to call security. That's when I knew. Someone had already buried me alive. It was October 3rd, 2024, just past 10 in the morning. I'd driven to Augusta Regional Bank to check on the business line of credit we'd opened back in June. Nothing fancy, just routine. The kind of thing I'd done 100 times in 43 years of running Mitchell & Sons hardware. But the moment I approached the counter, everything changed. Mrs. Mitchell? The manager, Mr. Garrett, I'd known him for 6 years, stood frozen behind his desk, his mouth opened, closed, opened again. I don't understand. You're not supposed to be... Not supposed to be what? I kept my voice level, calm. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The marble counter felt cool under my fingertips. He glanced at his computer screen, then back at me like I was a ghost. Ma'am, according to our records, you're currently residing in a memory care facility in Savannah. You've been declared cognitively incapacitated by your physician. The words hit like a freight train going full speed. Memory care facility, cognitively incapacitated. I stood there, 72 years old, wearing the same boots I'd worn to open the store that morning. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. And according to this man's computer, I didn't exist. Mr. Garrett, I said slowly, reaching into my purse. Here's my driver's license, renewed 3 months ago. Here's my business card. And here's a question. Who told you I was incompetent? He swallowed hard. Sweat beaded at his temples. The faint smell of coffee mixed with his fear. Your daughter-in-law, Vanessa Mitchell, came in 2 weeks ago with medical documentation. She presented a health proxy and requested access to your business accounts to... He stopped, looked down. To manage affairs during your incapacity. My heart pounded, but I didn't let it show. And the loan application? I asked. The one for $340,000? His face went from pale to gray. He pulled a file from his drawer with shaking hands and slid it across the counter. The rustle of paper sounded too loud in the quiet lobby. I opened it. There was my signature. Except it wasn't. The loops were wrong. The pressure uneven. I'd signed my name 10,000 times in my life. On invoices, checks, deeds, contracts. I knew every curve, every slant. This wasn't me. And beneath it, clipped neatly to the application, was a letter on medical letterhead. Patient Lorraine E. Mitchell exhibits significant cognitive decline and is no longer competent to manage financial affairs. Recommend immediate guardianship proceedings. Signed, Dr. Helena Kraus, neurologist. I'd never heard that name in my life. My boots echoed across that marble floor, sharp, deliberate, every head turned. The manager stood frozen. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Mr. Garrett, I said, setting the file back down on the counter. I need you to pull every document Vanessa Mitchell signed in the past 6 months, every authorization, every transaction, every single piece of paper with my name on it. He blinked. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm not sure I have the authority to... You have the authority. I cut in, my voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Because if you don't, I'll be making a call to the Georgia State Banking Commission before lunch, and I'll be asking them how a bank approved a 6-figure loan based on forged documents and a doctor who doesn't exist. His hand stopped halfway to the phone. Doesn't exist? He repeated weakly. Dr. Helena Kraus. I tapped the letter with one finger. I want you to verify her medical license. Right now, I'll wait. The click of his keyboard was the only sound in that lobby. A young teller glanced over, then quickly looked away. The air conditioning kicked on, raising goosebumps on my arms. I tasted rage behind my clenched teeth, but I kept my face calm. 30 seconds passed. His face told me everything before his mouth did. There's no... I can't find a licensed neurologist by that name in Georgia. Or anywhere else, I said quietly, because she's a ghost. And ghosts don't write medical opinions, Mr. Garrett. People with agendas do. He reached for a tissue. dabbed his forehead. Mrs. Mitchell, I assure you, we conducted due diligence. Your daughter-in-law presented a health proxy, signed and notarized by me, I leaned forward, or by someone pretending to be me. Silence. I want copies, I said. Everything. The loan application, the medical letter, the proxy documents, Vanessa's ID, the notary seal, transaction records. All of it. That could take 20 minutes, I finished for him. I'll be in the waiting area. He nodded, scrambling toward the back office like a man who'd just realized he'd been conned. I sat down in one of those stiff lobby chairs, crossing my legs, folding my hands. My heart hammered, but my face stayed smooth. An older woman across from me smiled nervously. I smiled back. Inside, I was burning. 23 minutes later, Mr. Garrett returned with a manila envelope so thick it barely closed. "Everything you requested," he said quietly. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm very sorry." I stood, took the envelope, and met his eyes. "Sorry doesn't fix fraud, Mr. Garrett, but documentation does." I walked out into the October sunlight. Inside that envelope was every lie Vanessa told, stamped and notarized. She'd handed me the rope. I just needed to tie the knot. Driving home, her words from 6 months ago kept looping. "Mom, the doctors said stress could kill you." It wasn't concern. It was the opening move in a long con I'd been too grateful to see. I gripped the steering wheel, watching the road blur past. The envelope sat in the passenger seat like evidence at a crime scene, because that's what it was. But this didn't start 3 weeks ago at a bank. It started the day I had that stroke. January 14th, 2023, a Sunday morning. I'd been restocking shelves at the main location when my left hand went numb. Then my words came out wrong, jumbled, backwards. One of the employees called 911. By the time I got to the ER, the whole left side of my face had drooped. Minor ischemic stroke, they called it. Scared me half to death. Trevor showed up first, my son. 46 years old, still wearing the same cologne his daddy wore. He held my hand in that hospital room and promised me everything would be okay. Then Vanessa arrived. She swept in with that lavender perfume she always wore. Too strong, like she was covering something rotten underneath. She carried a tote bag full of notebooks, folders, protein shakes. She kissed my forehead and smiled that pageant smile. "Mom, don't you worry about a single thing," she said, squeezing my good hand. "Trevor and I are going to take care of everything." And I let her. God help me, I let her. The doctors said I needed rest, speech therapy, no stress. So when Vanessa offered to handle the bills, "I'm used to these websites, Mom, they're confusing," I said yes. When she suggested she hold on to my debit card, just so you don't have to dig through your purse every time, I handed it over. When she started opening my mail before I saw it, I told myself she was being helpful. I was recovering, I was vulnerable, and I was grateful. That was my first mistake. By March, I'd finished speech therapy. My words came back clean and sharp. My left hand worked fine. I was ready to return to the stores. But every time I brought it up, Vanessa's voice would tighten, her smile would freeze, and she'd pull out another doctor's note, another article about stroke survivors, another reason why I needed to take it slow. "The doctors said another episode could be fatal, Mom. You don't want to risk it." "Which doctors? I never saw them. Every appointment she scheduled, she attended alone." "You were resting, Mom." "I didn't want to wake you." By summer, I realized I hadn't seen a bank statement in 4 months. When I asked, Vanessa laughed, light, breezy. "Oh, I've been handling all that. Everything's fine. You just focus on getting stronger." But I was strong. I could feel it. The last time I asked to see the quarterly reports, August, maybe early September, Vanessa sat beside me on the couch and touched my hand like I was a child. "Mom, numbers will just confuse you right now." She said it so gently, so kindly, like I hadn't built those numbers from sawdust and sweat for 43 years, like I was too weak to understand my own empire. I didn't argue. I just nodded. But that night, lying awake in the dark, I finally let myself think the thing I'd been avoiding. She's not protecting me. She's erasing me. Have you ever been helped so much you lost yourself? It starts quiet. Trevor was waiting on my porch when I got home, arms crossed, jaw set. He looked like Bernard used to before delivering bad news, except this time, he was the bad news. I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. The cicadas buzzed in the distance. Late afternoon heat pressed down like a wool blanket. Trevor stood there in khakis and a polo shirt, hands shoved in his pockets now, eyes on the ground. I grabbed the envelope and walked up the steps. The boards creaked under his weight as he shifted. Mom. Trevor. I unlocked the door and walked inside. He followed. The living room smelled like lemon polish. Vanessa's doing, probably. Everything in this house had her fingerprints on it now. I set the envelope on the coffee table, sat down in Bernard's old armchair. Trevor stood near the couch, looking like a man who wanted to run but couldn't. I went to the bank today, I said. His jaw tightened. He didn't ask why. Found some interesting paperwork. I opened the envelope, pulled out the loan application. $340,000, my signature. Except it's not my signature. Trevor's eyes flicked to the document, then away. Fast. Guilty. And this. I held up the medical letter. A doctor I've never met, declaring me mentally incompetent. Funny thing is, she doesn't exist. Silence filled the room like smoke. Thick. Choking. Trevor, look at me. He finally did. His eyes, Bernard's eyes, couldn't hold mine. Did you know? I asked. Mom, Vanessa was just trying to... Did you know? He exhaled, long and shaky, sank onto the couch. Not about the fake doctor, I swear. But the loan... Yeah, I knew about that. My heart cracked, clean down the middle. She said you'd agreed to it, he continued, voice barely above a whisper. She said you'd signed off but didn't remember because of the stroke. She said we needed to act fast to expand before the market shifted. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her. He looked up, eyes red. Mom, you scared us. That stroke, it was bad. And Vanessa kept saying you were confused, forgetful. She showed me notes from doctor's appointments, papers you'd supposedly signed that I never signed. I didn't know that. His voice cracked. I thought we were helping you retire with dignity. I thought we were protecting you. I let those words sit between us. Dignity, Trevor, requires my consent. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I stood, walked to the window. Outside, the sun was starting to dip. Golden light stretched across the lawn Bernard used to mow every Saturday. You knew enough to benefit, I said quietly. Not enough to get blamed. That's the choice you made. Mom, I need you to leave now. He stood, hesitated at the door, finally looked at me one last time. I thought we were helping you retire with dignity. I held his gaze, didn't blink. Dignity, Trevor, requires my consent. He walked out. The screen door slammed, his truck engine turned over, then faded down the street. I stood there in the silence, alone in a house that used to be mine. I knew then I was alone in this fight. That night, sleep was impossible. I walked to Bernard's old office, untouched since 2018. The mahogany desk still smelled like his cigars. Hidden in the bottom drawer was something Vanessa never knew existed. The office door creaked when I pushed it open. Moonlight spilled through the window, painting everything silver and shadow. Dust motes floated in the stillness. I hadn't been in here since the funeral. Couldn't bear it. But tonight I needed him, needed his clarity, his strategy. Bernard had always been a planner. After we fought that zoning discrimination case back in '94, when the county tried to block our second location because we were black business owners who didn't fit the neighborhood, he became obsessed with documentation. Lorraine, he'd said, people lie, but recordings don't. I sat in his chair, ran my fingers over the desk surface, pulled open the bottom drawer. There, beneath old tax files and a stack of unused business cards, was a small leather notebook. Bernard's handwriting covered the first page. Security system access, cloud backup, eyes and ears. My breath caught. The cameras. He'd installed them in 2015 after a break-in at the main store. Vanessa knew about them. Everyone did. But what she didn't know was that Bernard had connected them to a cloud server that recorded everything, encrypted, stored indefinitely. She thought they were defunct, decorative. She was wrong. I opened Bernard's laptop, still plugged in, still running after all these years. The password was written in the notebook, Lorraine Mitchell, 1952. The screen flickered to life. I navigated to the cloud service, entered the credentials, held my breath. Folders appeared, dozens of them, organized by location and date. Main office, September 2024. I clicked. Video files loaded. I selected one at random, September 18th, 2:47 p.m. The screen showed the main office. Vanessa sat at the desk, my desk, phone pressed to her ear. I couldn't hear anything at first, then I found the volume control. Her voice filled the room. Once the incompetency declaration goes through, we liquidate everything. The properties, the inventory, all of it. She'll never know what hit her. My hands went cold. I clicked another file. September 22nd. Vanessa again, this time talking to someone off camera. The neurologist letter is handled. I've got a notary who doesn't ask questions. By October, she won't have access to anything. Another file. October 1st, 11:23 a.m. Vanessa on the phone with Trevor. Your mother won't fight. She's too proud to admit she's lost control. By the time she figures it out, it'll be too late. I sat back, stared at the screen. Bernard's ghost had caught every word, every lie, every strategy, every cold, calculated move. Vanessa thought she'd erased me, but Bernard had made sure I'd have the last word. I opened a blank document, started taking notes. Exhibit A, motive. Exhibit B, premeditation. Exhibit C, fraud. She'd underestimated the wrong woman, and tomorrow I'd make sure she knew it. This is where everything shifts. If you delay, someone else takes your spot. Subscribe to stay ahead. At 6:47 a.m., I dialed a number I hadn't called in 3 years. Lawrence Steele answered on the second ring. Lorraine Mitchell, I was wondering when you'd call. He already knew. My hand tightened around the phone. How long have you known? About 6 weeks, Lawrence said. His voice was calm, measured. The same voice that had torn apart discriminatory zoning boards in the 90s. Rita Cousins, one of your longtime employees, reached out to me, said things at the store felt wrong, money missing, Vanessa acting like she owned the place. Rita, God bless that woman. I need to see you, I said. Today. I have an opening at 9. Bring everything you've got. Lawrence Steele's office sat on Broad Street, 3rd floor of a brick building older than both of us. I climbed those stairs with the manila envelope under one arm and Bernard's laptop under the other. Lawrence met me at the door, 78 years old, silver hair, sharp suit. He'd fought beside us when the county tried to shut us down for being black business owners in the wrong neighborhood. Bernard had called him a brother. I called him family. Lorraine. He took the laptop and envelope, gestured to a leather chair by the window. Morning light cut through Venetian blinds, striping the desk in gold and shadow. Coffee? No, thank you. He sat across from me, opened the envelope and started reading. His fountain pen scratched notes across a yellow legal pad. The only sounds were the pen, the rustle of paper, and the distant hum of traffic below. After 10 minutes, he looked up. Forgery. Elder financial abuse. Fraudulent medical documentation. Asset theft. He set the papers down. Lorraine, this is criminal. I know. You understand what that means? If we pursue this, Vanessa doesn't just lose. She goes to prison. I met his eyes. Didn't blink. Good. Lawrence nodded slowly, picked up the laptop. What's on here? Recordings. Bernard's old security system, cloud backup. Vanessa didn't know it was active. He opened the laptop, navigated through the files, clicked play on one. Vanessa's voice filled the office cold and clear. Once the incompetency declaration goes through, we liquidate everything. Lawrence listened to 3 more recordings. When he closed the laptop, his face was stone. This is airtight, he said quietly. She handed you everything. What do we do next? He leaned back, fingers pressed together like a steeple. First, we file a civil suit. Fraud, forgery, elder abuse. We request an emergency injunction freezing all assets and voiding any transfers made in the past 18 months. We'll need a forensic accountant to document the financial damage. I want criminal charges too. We'll file with the district attorney's office simultaneously. With this evidence, they'll move fast. I exhaled, felt the knot in my chest loosen just a fraction. When? I asked. We file Thursday morning. I'll have the papers drawn up by tomorrow. We'll serve Vanessa at the store, during business hours in front of customers and employees. Public. Exactly. Lawrence's eyes were hard. She erased you in private. We expose her in public. Let her feel what shame tastes like. I stood, shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm. Thank you, Lawrence. Don't thank me yet. This fight is just starting. I walked to the door, paused. Bernard always said you were the best. Bernard was right. He smiled just a little. And Lorraine? She won't see this coming. By the time Vanessa's lunch break hits, she'll be served, in front of everyone. Let her feel what exposure tastes like. Who's the one person you'd trust when the world crumbles? Honor them now. I spent 3 days reviewing footage. Vanessa thought those cameras were decorative relics. She talked freely, and Bernard's ghost caught every word. My dining room became a war room, laptop open, external hard drive plugged in, legal pad covered in timestamps and quotes, coffee growing cold in a mug I hadn't touched since morning. I started with September, clicked through files methodically, taking notes on everything. September 12th, 2:15 p.m. Vanessa on the phone with someone named Dr. Krause, the fake neurologist. Her voice was light, casual. Yes, we need the letter backdated to August. Make it sound official. Cognitive decline, memory loss, the works. I'll handle the notary. I wrote it down, played it again. Save the file as Exhibit B, Conspiracy. September 18th, 11:03 a.m. Vanessa in the office with Trevor. I could see them both on camera, her leaning against the desk, him standing by the window looking uncomfortable. Your mother's not going to fight this, Trevor. She's too proud to admit she's lost control. Once the bank approves the loan, we're free and clear. Trevor's response was too quiet to hear, but his face said everything. He knew. He'd always known. Exhibit C, Complicity. September 24th, 4:47 p.m. Vanessa on the phone again, pacing the office. This time she was talking to a real estate agent. The original location on Washington Street. Yes, that one. I want it listed quietly. No public advertising. We're looking at a closing date around mid-October. The owner is incapacitated. I have full power of attorney. She didn't have power of attorney. She had forged documents and a fake health proxy. I saved that one as Exhibit D, Intent to Defraud. The worst one came on October 1st, 11:23 a.m. Vanessa sitting at my desk, Bernard's desk, feet propped up like she owned the place. Phone pressed to her ear. Your mother won't fight. She's too proud to admit she's lost control. By the time she figures out what's happening, it'll be too late. The properties will be sold, the accounts drained. She'll have nothing. A pause. No, Trevor. Listen to me. This is our only shot. Your father left everything to her. If we don't act now, we'll never see a dime. She's old, she's weak, she had a stroke. Who's going to believe her over us? My hands went cold. I stopped the recording. stared at the frozen image of Vanessa's face, smiling, confident, completely assured of her victory. She thought I was weak. She thought I was defeated. She thought I'd go quietly. I labeled that file Exhibit A, Motive. By the third day, I had 17 recordings cataloged, 17 pieces of evidence showing premeditation, conspiracy, fraud, and intent. Every conversation Vanessa thought was private, Bernard had preserved. I burned them onto 3 separate discs, one for Lawrence, one for the district attorney, one locked in a safe deposit box at a bank Vanessa didn't know about. I closed the laptop, rubbed my eyes. Outside, the sun was setting. Vanessa had underestimated the wrong woman. They ignored the signs and paid. Subscribed to recognize them fast. Lawrence's forensic accountant delivered her report on a Tuesday. 63 pages. I made it to page 4 before I had to stop and breathe. Her name was Janet Q., 50-something, glasses. The kind of person who found answers in numbers the way detectives found them in evidence. Lawrence had hired her the same day I'd brought him the laptop. She sat across from me in Lawrence's conference room, the report between us like a body at an autopsy. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said gently, "I'm going to walk you through this, but I need you to prepare yourself. What she did, it's extensive." I nodded, folded my hands. "Go ahead." Janet opened to the first tab. "Let's start with property sales. In July, the Milledgeville location was sold for $340,000, well below market value. The buyer was a shell company called Hale Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware." "Hale," I repeated, "Vanessa's maiden name." "Correct. The company has one listed officer, Vanessa Mitchell." My stomach turned. The second location, Evans, was sold in early September for $280,000. Same shell company. Combined, those sales should have netted you over $800,000. Instead, the money was funneled into personal accounts controlled by Vanessa. She flipped to the next section. Red highlighter marks bled through the pages. Employee pension fund. Your company had $127,000 set aside for retirement benefits. As of last week, the balance is $9,400. The withdrawals were categorized as operating expenses, but the money went to personal purchases. What kind of purchases? Janet slid a printout across the table. Bank statements, charges highlighted in yellow, an $89,000 BMW, a $43,000 kitchen renovation, a $15,000 vacation to Turks and Caicos, designer handbags, jewelry, spa treatments. I tasted bile. "She stole from my employees," I said quietly. "Yes, ma'am." Janet turned more pages, each one worse than the last. Supplier accounts unpaid. Companies I'd worked with for decades, now sending collection notices. Insurance policies cashed out early. Penalties be damned. Even the trademark for Mitchell & Sons, 43 years of brand equity, was in transfer process to Hale Holdings, LLC. "She was dismantling everything," I said. "Systematically," Janet confirmed. "This wasn't impulsive. It was planned." I reached the final page. A real estate contract. Property. 428 Washington Street, Augusta, GA, the original storefront. The one Bernard and I opened in 1981 with a loan, a dream, and 2 hammers. Sale price, $410,000. Appraised value, $620,000. Closing date, October 15th, 2024, 6 days from now. I looked up at Janet, at Lawrence standing by the window. "She's selling the original store." "She was," Lawrence corrected. "I filed an emergency injunction this morning. That sale is frozen." I set the report down. My hands were shaking. Vanessa hadn't just stolen money. She'd tried to erase 43 years of my life, Bernard's life, our legacy. "How much total?" I asked. Janet's voice was soft. "Conservatively, $1.4 million in assets stripped, stolen, or sold below value." I closed my eyes, breathed. When I opened them, my voice was steady. "Let's bury her." I chose Sunday dinner. Same as always. Pot roast, cornbread, sweet tea. Vanessa walked in smiling, carrying flowers. She had no idea she was attending her own funeral. I'd set the table that morning. The good plates, Bernard's grandmother's china, silverware polished, cloth napkins folded beside each setting. The pot roast had been in the oven since 2, filling the house with the smell of carrots and onions and slow-cooked beef. By 5:30, everything was ready. By 6, I heard Trevor's truck pull up. I stood in the kitchen, wiping my hands on a towel, listening to their footsteps on the porch. The doorbell rang. I walked slowly to answer it. Vanessa stood there in a lavender dress, hair perfect, smile bright. She held a bouquet of daisies. "Mom!" She kissed my cheek. "That perfume, too strong, too sweet. These are for you. I know how much you love fresh flowers." "Thank you, dear." I took them, stepped aside. "Come in." Trevor followed, hands in his pockets, eyes on the floor. He mumbled a greeting. I nodded. "Dinner's almost ready," I said. "Have a seat." They settled at the table. Vanessa chatted about the weather, about a new restaurant they'd tried, about nothing. I brought out the roast, the cornbread, the greens, poured sweet tea into glasses. We ate. Vanessa complimented the food. Trevor stayed quiet, pushing carrots around his plate. 10 minutes in, I set down my fork. "I went to the bank last week," I said. Vanessa's smile didn't falter. "Oh? Everything okay?" "Interesting visit." I reached into my purse beside my chair and pulled out my phone, set it in the center of the table, screen facing up. "I found some paperwork. Thought you might want to hear about it." Trevor's fork clattered against his plate. I pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the dining room, crystal clear from the phone's speaker. "Once the incompetency declaration goes through, we liquidate everything. She'll never know what hit her." The color drained from Vanessa's face. I let it play. 30 seconds. A minute. Her voice, cold and calculating, discussing fraud strategies, fake medical documents, plans to sell the stores. Trevor stared at the phone like it was a bomb. When the recording ended, silence fell heavy as a gravestone. "That's impossible," Vanessa whispered. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. "Those cameras, they don't work. They haven't worked in years." "Bernard made sure they worked," I said quietly. "Cloud backup, encrypted. Every conversation you had in that office for the past 2 years." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Mom, I can explain." "Can you explain this?" I reached into my purse again and pulled out the lawsuit, filed that morning, stamped by the county clerk. I slid it across the table. Vanessa's eyes scanned the first page. Her hands started shaking. Civil fraud, elder financial abuse, forgery, asset theft. I ticked them off on my fingers. "That's just the civil suit. The district attorney received a copy this morning. Criminal charges are pending." "No." Vanessa stood, chair scraping back. "No, this is... You don't understand. I was trying to help you. You were confused after the stroke. I needed my family to be honest." I cut in. My voice was steel. "You wanted me declared incompetent. Fine. Let's let a judge decide who's unfit." Trevor's face was buried in his hands. Vanessa looked at me, at the lawsuit, at the phone still sitting between us. Her mask finally cracked. Vanessa lunged for the phone. Trevor caught her wrist. "Don't," he whispered. But she was past hearing, past pretending. The mask was off, and what remained was desperation. "You can't do this." Her voice cracked. Mascara started running in dark streaks down her cheeks. "I did everything for this family. I took care of you after the stroke. I managed the business when you couldn't." "You stole from me," I said calmly. "You forged documents. You tried to have me declared incompetent with fake medical records. Because you weren't capable." She jerked her arm free from Trevor's grip. "You were weak, confused. Someone had to take control before you destroyed everything Bernard built." "Bernard built it with me." My voice cut through her panic like a blade. "Not for you, with me." She cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Denial, anger, fear, landed on tears. I was scared, okay? Scared you'd have another stroke and leave us with nothing. Scared the business would fail. I was trying to protect our future. By selling my stores below market value to a shell company you own? Silence. By draining employee pensions to buy yourself a BMW? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. By forging my signature on loan documents? Trevor stood, walked to the window. His shoulders shook. Whether from anger or shame, I couldn't tell. I pulled out a second document, handed it to Vanessa. That's an eviction notice. You have until Wednesday to remove your belongings from this house, the house I own, the house Bernard and I bought in 1979. You can't, I can, and I am. I stood, gathered the plates despite the food still on them. All assets are frozen as of this morning, your bank accounts, your credit cards, the shell company, everything. Vanessa's knees buckled. She grabbed the table edge. Criminal charges will be filed by the end of the week, I continued. Lawrence estimates you're looking at 5 to 7 years. Elder financial abuse is a felony in Georgia. Mom! Trevor's voice came out hoarse. I looked at him. My son, Bernard's boy, the child I'd raised to stand up for what was right. You knew, I said quietly. Maybe not about the fake doctor, but you knew enough. I thought, his voice broke, I thought we were helping. You thought you were inheriting. I set the plates in the sink, turned to face them both. You have until Wednesday. After that, I'm changing the locks. Vanessa grabbed her purse, stumbled toward the door. Trevor followed. At the threshold, Trevor stopped, turned. Mom, I'm sorry. I stayed by the sink, hands folded. Sorry is just the start of waking up, son. It's not the end. He nodded. Eyes wet. Walked out. The screen door slammed. An engine started. Taillights faded down the street. I stood in the quiet house. 43 years of motherhood, and I'd just cut the cord. But I was still standing. Was this justice or cruelty? Tell me where the line is. October 17th, 2024. Rain misted the courthouse steps. I wore the navy suit Bernard bought me for our 40th anniversary. Lawrence carried a briefcase heavy enough to crush lies. We'd parked 2 blocks away. The walk felt longer than it was. Each step toward Richmond County Courthouse felt like stepping into history. Not the kind you read about, but the kind you make when you've got no choice left. News cameras waited on the steps. Lawrence had tipped off a reporter from the Augusta Chronicle. Elder fraud case, he'd told them. First of its kind in Georgia with this level of documentation. Camera flashes burst as we climbed. I kept my eyes forward, chin up. Bernard's wedding ring pressed against my finger. Solid, real, mine. Inside, the courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Our footsteps echoed down marble hallways. Courtroom 3B. The door stood open. We walked in. The room was smaller than I'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, high ceiling, rows of benches like church pews. A handful of people scattered throughout, reporters, court staff, a few curious onlookers. And there, 3 rows back, sat Vanessa. She'd dressed carefully, navy blazer, pearl earrings, hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her attorney, a young man in an expensive suit, leaned close, whispering. She nodded, face composed. She looked like the concerned daughter-in-law. The one who'd sacrificed so much to care for her ailing mother-in-law. She looked like she believed she'd win. Trevor sat alone in the back row. Our eyes met for half a second. He looked away first. Lawrence guided me to the plaintiff's table, set down his briefcase with a solid thunk, opened it. Inside were files, recordings, documents, everything we'd spent 2 weeks organizing. You ready? He asked quietly. I touched Bernard's ring. I'm ready. The bailiff called out, All rise for the Honorable Judge Evelyn Reed. We stood. Judge Evelyn Reed entered through the side door. Mid-60s, gray hair cut short, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She'd been on the bench for 20 years. Lawrence said she didn't tolerate nonsense. She settled behind the bench, arranged papers, put on her glasses. The gavel struck once, a sound like a coffin closing. "Please be seated." Her voice filled the room, clear and strong. "We're here today regarding Mitchell vs. Mitchell Vanessa, case number 2024 CV08847. This is a civil action alleging elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy." She looked at Lawrence, at Vanessa's attorney, at me. "I've reviewed the filings. This court will hear opening statements, witness testimony, and evidence presentation. Let's be clear from the start. I expect professionalism, brevity, and respect for these proceedings." She picked up her pen. "Counsel for the plaintiff, you may begin." Lawrence stood, buttoned his jacket, looked at the judge. "Your Honor, we're here regarding Mitchell versus Mitchell Vanessa. Let's hear what we have." The trial had begun. This mistake repeats quietly. Subscribe to catch it before it spreads. Vanessa's attorney stood, voice smooth as oil. "Your Honor, my client acted from genuine concern for her mother-in-law's declining health." Lawrence didn't even look up from his notes. He was smiling. The attorney, his name was Preston Walsh, paced in front of the bench like he was performing. Mrs. Lorraine Mitchell suffered a serious stroke in January 2023. Her cognitive abilities were compromised, her judgment impaired. My client, Vanessa Mitchell, stepped in to manage complex financial affairs that Mrs. Mitchell could no longer handle. Every action she took was with Mrs. Mitchell's best interests at heart. He gestured toward Vanessa, who dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "This lawsuit is the result of confusion and misunderstanding, tragic byproducts of Mrs. Mitchell's ongoing health struggles." Judge Evelyn Reed made a note. "Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Steele?" Lawrence stood slowly. No theatrics, no pacing, just steady, controlled power. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that Vanessa Mitchell engaged in a calculated scheme to systematically strip my client of her assets, her business, and her legal identity. This wasn't confusion. It was theft." He opened his briefcase, pulled out the first exhibit. "Let's start with the recordings." The courtroom deputy set up the audio system. Lawrence handed him a flash drive. Within seconds, Vanessa's voice filled the courtroom, crystal clear, unmistakable. "Once the incompetency declaration goes through, we liquidate everything. She'll never know what hit her." The room went silent. Lawrence played 3 more clips, each one more damning than the last. Vanessa discussing fake medical documents, Vanessa planning property sales, Vanessa laughing about the old woman being too proud to fight back. Mr. Walsh's face went pale. Vanessa stared at the table, shoulders rigid. "Those recordings," Lawrence continued, "were captured by a cloud-based security system installed in 2015. The defendant believed the cameras were inactive. She was wrong." Judge Evelyn Reed leaned forward. "Mr. Walsh, are you disputing the authenticity of these recordings?" "Your Honor, I'd need time to verify." "That's your client's voice, is it not?" Walsh hesitated, whispered with Vanessa. She nodded barely. "It appears to be, Your Honor. However, context is important." "We'll discuss context," the judge said curtly. "Continue, Mr. Steele." Lawrence called his first witness, Janet Q., the forensic accountant, took the stand. She testified for 20 minutes, walking through every financial crime in methodical detail. 2 store locations sold below market value, employee pensions drained, assets transferred to shell companies owned by Vanessa. "Total estimated theft?" Lawrence asked. $1.4 million, Janet stated. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. A reporter in the back row scribbled frantically. Next witness. Dr. Alan Davies, neurologist. Lawrence handed him the medical letter declaring me incompetent. Dr. Davies, do you know a Dr. Helena Kraus? I do not. Is she licensed to practice medicine in Georgia? There is no licensed physician by that name in Georgia. I verified this through the state medical board. So this letter declaring Mrs. Mitchell incompetent, is fraudulent, Dr. Davies said flatly. The medical terminology is correct, but the diagnosis itself is fabricated. Mrs. Mitchell's medical records show full cognitive recovery post-stroke. Mr. Walsh tried to object. Judge Evelyn Reed waved him off. Final witness, Mr. Garrett from Augusta Regional Bank. He confirmed the forged signatures. Confirmed Vanessa's claims that I was in a memory care facility. Confirmed the $340,000 loan application I'd never authorized. When Lawrence sat down, the evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, documents, expert testimony, bank records. Vanessa's attorney had nothing. Judge Evelyn Reed looked at Vanessa over her reading glasses. Ms. Mitchell, is that your voice on these recordings discussing liquidation of assets? Vanessa's attorney whispered frantically in her ear. She swallowed. It sounds like me. But context? Yes or no? Silence stretched like a pulled thread. Yes. When lies collapse in public, is it justice or tragedy? Judge Evelyn Reed removed her glasses. The courtroom held its breath. When she spoke, her voice could have cut steel. This court finds the evidence of fraud not just compelling, but comprehensive. She set down her pen, looked directly at Vanessa. Ms. Mitchell, the recordings alone would be sufficient to demonstrate intent, but coupled with the forensic accounting, the forged documents, and the fabricated medical records, this case represents one of the most calculated instances of elder financial abuse I've encountered in 20 years on this bench. Vanessa's face crumbled. Her attorney put a hand on her shoulder. The health proxy you obtained is hereby nullified as it was procured under false pretenses. All asset transfers made in the past 18 months are voided. Full operational and financial control of Mitchell & Sons Hardware and all associated properties is restored to Mrs. Lorraine Mitchell, effective immediately. The gavel struck once, sharp, final. Lawrence squeezed my hand under the table. But Judge Evelyn Reed wasn't finished. Furthermore, this court is referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. The evidence suggests violations of Georgia Statute 16-8-4, financial exploitation of an elder person, a felony carrying 5 to 20 years imprisonment. Vanessa made a sound like a wounded animal. The tissue in her hand tore. Forgery charges under Statute 1691 will also be recommended, as will conspiracy to commit fraud. 3 clean gavel strikes. This court is adjourned. The room erupted. Reporters rushed toward the aisle. Camera flashes burst. The bailiff called for order. I sat still. The weight that had pressed on my chest for 18 months finally lifted. Lawrence leaned close. You did it. I looked at Vanessa, mascara running, shoulders shaking, being led away by her attorney and a sheriff's deputy who'd appeared from a side door. Trevor stood in the back row. Our eyes met. He mouthed something. Might have been, I'm sorry. Might have been nothing. He turned and walked out. Lawrence gathered the files, returned them to his briefcase. The DA will move fast. With this evidence, Vanessa will likely take a plea deal. 3 to 5 years. If she's smart. And if she's not, then we go to trial, and she loses bigger. We walked out through a side door to avoid the press. Rain had stopped. Clouds were breaking up, letting thin October sunlight through. On the courthouse steps, Lawrence paused. You just set precedent in 3 states. This case will be cited in elder law for years. I looked back at the building, stone and columns and justice that sometimes, just sometimes, actually worked. I just got my name back, I said quietly. That's enough. We walked to his car in silence. My phone buzzed. Text from Rita at the store. We heard. We're so proud of you. I typed back, see you Monday, time to rebuild. Because that's what you do when the world tries to erase you. You show up, you fight back, you reclaim what's yours, and you keep building. He apologized publicly. Can that relationship ever heal? 3 weeks after the verdict, a truck pulled into my driveway. Trevor stepped out, thinner, older. He looked like a man who'd walked through fire and found only ash on the other side. I'd moved to a small house near Lake Thurmond, 2 bedrooms, screened porch, water view. Nothing fancy, just mine. Paid in cash from assets Lawrence had recovered. The legal settlement came through faster than expected. Vanessa took a plea deal. 4 years, eligible for parole in 2.5. Trevor filed for divorce the same week. I watched him from the kitchen window as he climbed out of his truck. He stood there a moment, hands in his pockets, staring at the house like he wasn't sure he should be there. I opened the door before he could knock. "Mom." "Trevor, can we talk?" I stepped aside. He came in slowly like a stranger in an unfamiliar place. The house smelled like coffee and lake water. I'd left the windows open. A breeze moved through, carrying the distant hum of a boat motor. "Sit," I said. We sat at the small kitchen table. I poured 2 mugs of coffee. Neither of us touched them. Trevor's hands shook as he folded them on the table. "I don't know how to start." "Then just start." He exhaled, long, shaky. I was a coward. I knew something was wrong. I knew Vanessa was pushing you out. I knew she was making decisions without asking you, but it was easier to believe her than to confront her. I stayed quiet. Let him talk. "She kept saying you were confused, that the stroke had affected your judgment, and part of me wanted to believe it because—" His voice cracked. "Because if you weren't capable anymore, then it wasn't wrong for us to take over. We were just helping. Helping yourselves." He flinched, nodded. "Yeah, helping ourselves. I won't lie and say I didn't benefit. I did. New truck, paid off credit cards. Vanessa promising we'd finally have the life we deserved." He looked up, eyes red. "I chose that over you. I chose comfort over integrity, and I'm sorry." The weight of those words hung between us. Sorry is just the start of waking up, Trevor. It's not the end. "I know." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I filed for divorce. I quit the business. I know you don't want me there right now. I'm seeing a therapist, trying to figure out how I became the kind of man who'd let his wife steal from his mother." Silence. Just the breeze and the distant water. "You'll always be my son," I said finally. "But the man I raised wouldn't have stayed silent while his wife destroyed his mother. That man got lost somewhere. You need to find him again." He nodded. Stood. Walked toward the door. At the threshold, he turned. "I'm finding him again. It might take a while." "It will." I met his eyes. "But when you do, you'll know where I am." I watched his truck pull away, watched the taillights disappear down the road. Forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't a moment. It was a road, and some roads took longer than others. What's harder, starting over or forgiving those who watched you fall? 14 months after the trial, I stood behind a podium in the original Mitchell & Sons storefront. The plaque beside me read, "Mitchell Elder Protection Initiative, Tools for Defending Dignity." The store looked different now. We'd kept the bones. The original wooden shelves Bernard built in '81, the wide plank floors, the high tin ceiling. But where hardware once lined the walls, now there were desks, computers, filing cabinets, and a waiting area with comfortable chairs. The transformation had taken 6 months. Lawrence helped me set up the nonprofit structure. We used the recovered assets, money Vanessa had stolen and the court had returned, to fund it. $1.2 million dedicated to protecting seniors from the exact kind of abuse I'd survived. Today was the official launch. The room was packed. Reporters from 3 cities, community leaders, social workers, and seniors, lots of them, some silver-haired like me, some younger, all with stories etched in the lines of their faces. My granddaughter Chloe stood beside me, Trevor's daughter, 23 years old, fresh out of college with a degree in social work. She'd volunteered to coordinate the youth outreach program. "You ready, Grandma?" she whispered. I touched the podium. Felt the smooth wood under my fingertips. "I'm ready." The room quieted. "Thank you all for coming." I started. "My name is Lorraine Mitchell. Some of you know my story. Some of you lived your own version of it. Today we're here to make sure fewer people have to." I looked out at the faces watching me. Attentive, hopeful. 43 years ago, my husband Bernard and I opened this store with a small business loan, 2 hammers, and a dream. We built Mitchell & Sons from nothing. We survived discrimination, economic downturns, and every challenge this business could throw at us. I paused, swallowed. But nothing prepared me for what happened when I became vulnerable. A minor stroke in 2023 left me temporarily weak, and someone I trusted saw that weakness as opportunity. The room was silent. You could hear the old ceiling fan turning overhead. Within 18 months, I was nearly erased, my signature forged, my assets stolen, my identity legally declared invalid by someone who was supposed to love me. A few heads nodded. Someone in the third row wiped their eyes. I fought back because I had resources. I had recordings. I had an attorney who owed my late husband a favor. I had documentation and evidence and luck. I gripped the podium edge. But most people don't have those things. Most people who get targeted by family members or caregivers have no way to fight back. The system is complicated. Legal help is expensive. And by the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. Chloe handed me a folder. I held it up. That's why this initiative exists. Free legal consultations, financial monitoring tools, educational workshops on recognizing the warning signs of elder abuse, a hotline staffed by trained advocates, and most importantly, a community. Lawrence stood in the back, arms crossed, smiling. "No one should have to fight alone," I continued. "No one should feel erased. This initiative is for every grandmother who's been told she's too confused to understand her own bank account, every grandfather who's been isolated from friends and family, every senior who's been made to feel like a burden instead of the foundation they are." Camera clicks filled the silence. Bernard used to say, "People lie, but recordings don't." He was right, but I'd add this. People also forget. They forget that strength isn't just physical. It's knowing when to ask for help. It's standing up even when your knees shake. It's refusing to disappear. I looked at Chloe, at Lawrence, at the faces filling the room. I built this place twice now, once with hammers and hope, once with evidence and endurance. My voice is steady. My hands are my own. And the empire I reclaimed isn't measured in locations or loans. It's measured in the people I can protect from ever feeling erased. I set down my notes. Real strength, I've learned, isn't in never falling. It's in standing back up and making sure others don't have to fall alone. The room erupted in applause. Chloe squeezed my hand. Cameras flashed. Bernard's old cash register sat in the corner, polished, retired, a reminder of where we'd been and how far we'd come. I'd reclaimed more than a business. I'd reclaimed myself, and now I'd help others do the same. What's the one line from this story you'll carry with you? Drop it below.